Hello everybody, welcome back to another Kerbal Space Program video. In today's video, I'm going to be doing a tutorial on how to recreate the Buran and Energia rocket. We're going to be starting today in the vehicle assembly building and spaceplane hangar. We're going to be doing a walkthrough on how to recreate the rocket and spaceplane. Then we're going to be heading out to the launch pad and I'm going to demonstrate a quick launch and a landing with the Buran. So without further ado, let's get straight into the spaceplane hangar. So to begin construction, we are going to be placing down a Mark III cockpit and then a nose cone, like so, to do the front of the spacecraft. If you don't know what the Buran and Energia is, it is the system that is basically the Soviet Union's space shuttle clone. The Buran is the space plane, and then the Energia is a rocket. Unlike the NASA system, the Energia was actually fully independent of the Buran, so it was its own rocket, so it could actually, in theory, send its own payloads that it doesn't even need the Buran, so that was pretty cool. But yeah, this thing is very similar to the space shuttle, but there are a few differences, especially with the Energia booster, and actually one of the biggest differences is actually in the Buran. We're starting to make the back part of the Buran here. We're going to be using a 2.5 meter fairing to make this little back hump thing there. And then, yeah, the unique thing about the Buran, relative to the space shuttle, is it actually has jet engines on the back of it. So it actually is capable of powered flight, which is pretty cool. So yeah, we're going to be placing down those jet engines now right after I put some reaction wheels, smaller one, in the Buran. Yeah, so if you find this tutorial helpful at all, and you wanna see more, I try to do tutorials quite often. This is 2 tutorials in a row now I did, but yeah. So yeah, if you're enjoying the tutorial, enjoy the channel. We do daily live streams, all that kind of cool, awesome stuff. Subscribe button maybe. I don't know. You interested? I don't know. The goal is to get to 6,000 subscribers by February if you're watching at time of release. So, well, let's see how that works. We're not quite on track to do it. We're averaging about 60 subscribers a day, and we need to get, I think, average about 100. So we'll see how it goes. And Discord too. We're actually, I'll talk a little more about the Discord in a few minutes once there's like a little lull in the building part. But yeah, I have actually kind of an exciting-ish announcement to make about some stuff we're going to be doing on the Discord. So, yeah, so we're just putting some jet engines there right on top of some modular girders. As you can see, hopefully my rambling didn't kind of detract from the tutorial, but yeah, so now we're going to go ahead and put on some more modular girders, and what we're going to do with those is we're going to be putting on some liquid fuel tanks behind them. Now, I just showed liquid fuel tanks because this is kind of like the RCS block for the Buran. I don't really know what to call it, but it's kind of a thing in the back where they have their orbital maneuvering engines, basically. So I'm going to be getting some really weak rocket engines to put on the back, and then I'm going to put RCS thrusters on the sides of it. This thing's kind of a weird shape. It's kind of like a triangular triangle looking thing. It's kind of hard to explain, so I just did some liquid fuel tanks. You can drain the fuel out of them if you want, but I elected to leave them in because we could use them to power up the jet engines. So we go putting the rocket engines on as well. This will help us maneuver in orbit and deorbit ourselves when we eventually need to. One thing to note on that fuel tank that I put behind the cargo bay, you should put a drain valve on it because the craft is actually pretty unstable during re-entry if you have a lot of fuel in that back area. So put a drain valve on. I did forget to show that in this video, so yeah, put a drain valve on, right? It's important. So now we're going to angle the engines a little bit downwards just because they are located quite high up on the vehicle and pointing them down. So the center thrust is going through the center mass, which means that the rocket will actually manage to stay stable, because if we have those engines firing straight, it's just going to make the rocket flip over. So yeah, that's pretty important. Yeah, and then once you're done with those, we're going to just go ahead and put some of those RCS modules, or the linear RCS. You'll see here in just a second after I do a little bit of clipping to make it and do some nice looky things. So here we go. I don't know if you guys could heard that notification, but if you did, I'm sorry about that. You guys totally heard that notification. Yeah. So yeah, we put those RCS modules on, and then we're going to go ahead and put the big ass tail fin on the back of the ship, or the space plane. Buran has a really big tail fin relative to the wing. I mean, the space shuttle does too, but I feel like the Buran's a little bit bigger. Maybe that's just a personal thing. I don't know. Tell me how wrong I am, probably, guys. So now we're going to go ahead and put a docking port onto the thing, and you could put fuel tank in there if you want to do a simulated payload. The reason I didn't is because actually the less payload you have in the cargo bay, the less stable the vehicle is. So I wanted to kind of demonstrate a launch in like the worst case scenario in terms of stability. So that's why I didn't put any like test payload in there or anything. So now we're gonna put some wings on. This part's basically identical to a space shuttle. So you just have the big S wing, and then you have you go ahead and put on some elevons and stuff. You can fill up the big S wing with liquid fuel if you'd like. I chose not to, just because jet engines don't really take up that much liquid fuel. There's some wing strakes you put in the future here in a few seconds. I go ahead and put the liquid fuel in there as well, and that liquid fuel is a little bit further up front, which also helps with stability, right? Because you want weight up front, because we don't want, because you know, if you don't know, when you're making a plane, if you have your center of mass be behind your center of lift, you are unstable and you will crash and die and burn and explode. Basically, it's not very fun. That's what I'm trying to get at here. So, yeah, so do that. And now we're gonna go ahead and put in the wing strakes. You want to see that gray part of the wing strake. You want to basically have that part cover up the big S wing, or get covered up by the big S wing. That's how far you really want to put it in. I'm pretty sure that's why that gray part is there, as like an indication of where you need to put it, right? So there you go, just putting it in right there, and then I believe I go ahead and add the fuel in just a moment. Yeah, so I guess I could get to my little announcement thingy right now while not much is happening. We're just putting fuel in, and then I believe you put the landing gear in next, if I'm not forgetting something that we do. Yeah, landing gear are fairly basic, so you know, just put the landing gear on, right? You can just follow the tutorial. Actually, one thing to note about the tutorial, to note about the landing gear before I do my little announcement thing, that's not really even an announcement, but you want to make sure that front landing gear is not clipped too far into the nose cone. Or into the cockpit. I change it actually in a few minutes when you switch over to the vehicle assembly building, because otherwise you'll get a notification when you try to deploy the landing gear that says like cannot deploy while stowed, and the landing gear won't deploy. So yeah, make sure you do that. So what I was gonna say, so I just me and my friend, we set up a multiplayer server on Luna Multiplayer for KSP, and I want to do some streams and some stuff in Luna Multiplayer. If you don't know what it is, it's a mod that basically allows you to have multiplayer in KSP. It's actually really cool. We tested it the other day and it worked quite well. So yeah. So basically what I want to say is, if any of you guys are interested in doing some fun mini games and stuff in there, it's kind of a little bit difficult to get installed, and you have to kind of mess with mods and stuff. So I'm giving you guys like some advanced notice that I want to be doing that in the future, and we'll be doing stuff through Discord. I want to do like a mini game tournament or something, and we could have like a bracket, and it'd be epic. Then we could have a winner, and they could win probably nothing. I don't know. Maybe I could give someone $5 or something. Yeah, so, okay. I just talked over the most important part. You have to put the Soviet flag on. Don't forget the Soviet flag. The superior Soviet Russian. I don't know why I did the accent. It's terrible, and I keep doing it. It's just so fun to do. So, yeah. You put the Soviet flag, most important part. If you get anything from this video, it's the Soviet flag is important. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to, obviously. If you don't know how to get a flag, custom flag, what you have to do is you have to download the picture. You have to go into your game files, go find a folder called game data, and then find another folder called squad, and then find one called flags, and then you're going to want to put your flag into said squad folder, or said flag folder, not the squad, the flag, right? So there, I'm just lowering the landing gear. So now I switch over to the vehicle assembly building, and we are going to be working on the Energia booster / rocket / awesome thing, which is going to be the last thing we have to do before we can take it out for a flight. So the Energia is very similar to the Shuttle, and like its orange tank and SRBs. So the biggest difference between the Energia and the Shuttle is the boosters are different. So the orange tank is, I guess, gray in the Energia, but guys, in color. But so instead of having SRBs on the Energia, it actually has 4 liquid fuel boosters. So the Space Shuttle had 2 solid fuel boosters. The Energia has 4 liquid fuel boosters. So that's something to keep note of that we'll get to in a second. So here I'm just putting a big 5-meter fuel tank on here. Probably should have mentioned it before, but the Making History DLC is recorded for this build because we use some of the engines from it, and we use the 5-meter fuel tanks. I mean, you theoretically could use a 3.75-meter fuel tank if you wanted to, but it looks just way too small. And I believe the Energia is actually slightly bigger or wider than the Space Shuttle's orange tank, and it's not orange, so I don't really have to worry about making it orange, right? So we're gonna continue to work on the the booster, just getting the height right. You want the booster is about twice as big as the shuttle. This is a good reference. It's not quite twice as big. It's like 95% bigger. So we're gonna go with that, and it has a really big nose cone. So we're just gonna go ahead and grab a 5-meter fairing in just a moment here, and we're gonna make ourselves a nice little nose cone. So if you want to toggle snapping, you want to hit the C button to toggle snapping, and if you have snapping on and turning it off, we'll just make it a little bit easier to make a nice rounder shape. And if you didn't have it on, well, good for you. So yeah, it did take a few tries to get right. The problem I kept having is I kept making the nose cone too steep, so it would be too pointy. So the Energia nose cone is actually fairly round. So just keep that in mind when you're doing your build. If you're following along, you can also grab the craft file, which I'll hopefully remember to link in the description. If I didn't link it right away when the video comes out, I'll try and get it done maybe an hour or 2 hours after it comes out. So I don't know if this probably won't apply to most people, and I'm hoping I don't forget, but yeah. So now I'm gonna grab some burner engines to put on the side of the booster. Just for stability. I found that the thing was extremely, if you, I don't know how to say this. This actually isn't even that difficult to say. I don't know why I'm having such an issue. It likes to roll. Like, it really likes to roll. So you don't have to use the burner engines, but you will have major roll problems. If you want it to stay going the right direction and on the roll axis, you're going to need to use them. You'll see when I go and get to the launch. So now we're going to add some 4 Mastodon engines, which are going to be our Energia engines. Another, probably the one of the biggest differences between the Buran Energia and the space shuttle is the main engines are actually on the booster itself and not on the shuttle, like in the space shuttle. So that's why I would make the controversial opinion that the Buran is actually inferior to the space shuttle. A lot of people think it's better, but you can't recover the main engines, right? I mean, practically speaking, the space shuttle had major issues with, like you had to refurbish and it cost a whole bunch of money, but I mean, that's beside the point. Let's get back to the tutorial. So what I'm doing is something kind of weird here. So I'm just placing one of the side boosters here on kind of a weird spot. This is not where they go, but I'm doing this just so I can get a good kind of way to make it, because if you put it on a decoupler on the side, what I find happens a lot is the symmetry is kind of weird. So I just put it on here temporarily so I can get the symmetry to work. So we're using the Bobcat engine, 2 of them, to get the 4 bell look which is on the Buran or the Energia. So unfortunately, one slight issue is the tiny little like shroud or whatever it is, the scaffolding I guess of the engine will slightly peek out of the booster. But I mean, you can move it in the engines in a little bit if you want. But I kind of like the distance. So either way. So now we're gonna get some decouplers. We're gonna get 2 decouplers on the side of the Energia. The way the boosters are mounted, you can't just do 4-way symmetry. You have to do 2 sets of 2-way symmetry, or you could do like 8-way symmetry and then remove parts from symmetry. But this is the way I like to do it. So you basically just get the 2-way symmetry, and you get the decouplers where you want them, and then you do the 2-way. And then what you do is you just double them up and you go to 4-way. But we'll do that after I actually finish building the actual booster, so I can just copy the entire booster over. So we are going to now just build up the booster. Before we do that, we actually have to lower them down. We want the engines of the boosters to be the same height as the engines of the main core. So yeah. So now we're gonna go ahead and add some more fuel tanks onto the top. Because of the way the thrust of the Bobcat works and just the overall just insane amounts of fuel in this thing, we don't actually have enough thrust to weight ratio to actually fly. So we're at the end of this build, not time lapse, I guess, build tutorial. I don't know what you'd call it, but we're gonna have to drain some of the fuel. So I'll show a picture at the end if you want to. I guess stay tuned. Just before the launch. So now we're just gonna get some of those adapter pieces, and we can get the nice top of the booster made. You're gonna have to probably rotate the booster after. Rotate it a little bit after you do words, right? after you place them down, just so you can get them kind of pointed directly inwards, right? So that is basically 2 of the boosters done. So then I'm going to just hit Alt and then left click, and then we're going to double it over and make another set of 2 boosters. You kind of want them to be very close to each other, but not like clipped into each other like they are right now. So I do end up just going ahead and making some adjustments to the boosters so so they're not inside of each other, because you don't really want that. So yeah, I'm just deciding on what kind of orientation I want for them, and this is kind of what I settle on, or I don't think I settle on this. I do make a few more changes to the booster, but yeah, just do whatever you think looks right. If you want to space them out a little bit, you obviously can. You know, you don't obviously have to follow this for. I was actually wondering, I'm kind of off topic here. How many of you actually watch my tutorials for tutorials and not just for like entertainment purposes? Like, when we were premiering my last tutorial, I had quite a few people in chat say, "Oh, I don't use these as tutorials. I just watch them for fun." I don't know. Do you guys do that? I don't know. Am I just that entertaining? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't know. Either way, we can do another crossfade, right? And then we can go ahead and do the next step, which is going to be angling those mastodon engines. So you want to enable center of mass and center of thrust. And like I said, what we did with those orbital maneuvering engines on the Buran, you want to have those mastodon engines point. We want to rotate them a little bit so the center of thrust points through the center of mass. So we're gonna have to remove all of them from symmetry. Because or else they'll all, if I turn one, they'll all turn together, and then it won't really do anything. Because you'll see what I did a few seconds ago, and that's what happened. So, yeah, so now we have to rotate them. You want to actually overcompensate a little bit. You want to rotate them just a little bit too much, because as you burn fuel, the center of mass is actually going to change, and as you burn the boosters and all that stuff. So, basically, on the launch, you want it to be pointed a little bit too far towards the shuttle, and then towards the Buran, and then after booster separation, it's going to be pointed a little bit too far towards the booster. So, I don't know if that makes sense, but I don't know. I'm not very good at explaining things. I don't know. You guys seem to like tutorials, so we'll keep doing them. We'll keep doing them. I still have to do an N1 tutorial that people have been asking for a while. That's my next one on the list, is to do an N1 tutorial, because the N1 is freaking awesome. It's epic. I like the N1. So now we're going to go ahead and get some launch clamps onto the rocket, and we can get ready. Well, that's basically most of the steps completed before we can launch. So yeah, the last thing we have to do after the launch clamps is to have a look here at our fuel setup. So I have those there. This picture will go away in a second or two. We'll go to the launch, but if you want to pause the video, you can do that. So that's what the fuel setup is, and now we can get out to the launch pad and we can get ready to do a launch. The video is pretty long, so I'm going to keep this launch part trying to keep it pretty quick, but basically, this thing's not easy to control without the RCS thrusters. What it really wants to flip, and it wants to go the other direction. So the way the thing actually launches, as you can see, when we start our gravity turn here, is that you normally you'd want to launch the thing with the shuttle going upside down, I guess, basically. I don't know if that makes sense. We want the shuttle to be facing the oncoming air. The way this thing wants to work is it wants to flip the other way, so the shuttle is like on top of the booster, as it, I think that makes sense. So you do need the RCS thrusters to kind of help control the roll. If you're fine with it flipping the other way and not exactly being totally realistic, then I guess you don't have to. You don't have to fire the RCS thrusters during, flight. So then we can stage away the boosters there. You're gonna want to cut all the engines while the boosters separate, and once the boosters are gone, you can restart the engine, because they don't have any separatrons. So if you fire them, they can kind of explode and stuff, or you can just add separatrons. That's also a good idea. So now we can coast on up to our Apsilus, and then we can fire the engines one final time. And then once you do that, we will crossfade over to a re-entry and landing. And you want to make sure that the fuel tank that I mentioned earlier is drained. One thing I do want to note is I don't have any visual mods installed right now. I don't know if anyone noticed. That's because I was messing with some multiplayer stuff and I had to uninstall the mods, and I haven't remembered to reinstall them. So I don't know if that is that's something that any of you care about. But so now we're gonna fire up the jet engines just to fly around the desert a little bit. It turns out you need intakes for jet engines. I did forget to show to the build time lamps. I put two small intakes on. They weren't enough, so put more intakes on than I showed. So that was a little bit of a whoopsie on my end. The craft file that you'll be able to download, I'll add some intakes to it. So yeah, we're just gonna be coming in for a nice little landing here in the desert, because in Mother Russia, everywhere is a runway. Runway land on you. You do not land on runway. If it looked like runway, we were used as runway. I don't care if it's paved. This is improvised runway. I don't know. Basically, we're coming in for a landing here. So lowering the gear, and we are coming in for a nice superior landing. This is probably so cringy. All right, here we go. And Touchdown. Pretty nice landing. If it was okay. But there you go. It's going to bring us to a stop. And that's going to bring us to the end of today's video. So I hope you liked it. Hope you find it helpful or at least entertaining, or I don't know. Link to the Discord, guys. I want to get to 1,000 members. I think we're going to get probably 800 today. I hope we get up to 800 today. That'd be pretty epic. But either way, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. Please rate or comment to this video. Once again, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. And bye.